We look at ourselves as the bridge between the traditional financial and the crypto world. So that's why we want to be the bank and issue stablecoin bank accounts directly out of your stablecoin. We all know about the breadth and scale of NWC, 100,000 attendees globally with phenomenal success. But I think it's the content and the engagement, the energy, which is vibrant, ebullious. But I think it's a melting pot of corporates, telecom, startups, especially this 4 years from now, where you have investors, startups, corporate, cutting-edge technology providers all under the same roof. That's phenomenal. We love it here.
We're wrapping up shop here at MWC 2025. It's been a super productive conference. We networked with a ton of mobile network operators, and the booth generated a ton of interest. So that's it for now. We'll see you at the next conference.
Hey everybody, my name's Grant Key. I'm the lead protocol engineer for Telcoin Network. I'll show you our digital cash demo. We've deployed several digital cash options on testnet. This is a Diri testnet. We have selected our e-Mexican Peso, and you can see from a list of options, we've got a wallet with several balances, but today we're going to swap for Canadian dollars. Set an amount, we'll do 2,000, and we can see the price impact, the minimum amount received. We set our parameters for the swap, and now we're ready to sign.
Good evening.
For the demo on desktop, we're using MetaMask. It's an open source EVM wallet.
Nathan, how you doing?
Telcoin Network is fully compatible with all the EVM products on the market.
Sir.
And once we've signed our transaction, it's now with the network. The nodes
what
are reaching consensus, they're validating it.
This is
they're exchanging that information
this is
to make sure it's a legitimate transaction. And once that's reached on testnet, about 5 seconds. We should be able to see the information in the block explorer. So here we can see our status was successful. The block that the transaction was included in 100,593, and we signed our transaction just 22 seconds ago.
I think I've actually.
The power of Telcoin Network with an instant finality. Every time a block is produced, the settlement is cleared. That transaction.
Away from work this afternoon?
Yeah, actually, I'm off the rest of the week. We got some plans with some family coming to visit. They should be here actually within the hour, so timing works out well with the meeting. And then we've got a cottage rental we're heading up north to for the weekend.
Nice.
Yeah, should be good. How about yourself?
Just home from work now, and after the meeting, go straight to bed probably. Okay, Mr. Parker Span is in the room by the looks of things. Hello, Parker. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. How you doing, Tim? You have to call me Mister. Come on now.
All right, sir.
I have been getting called that recently by young 20-year-old type people that I know my network. They call me Mr. Span, and I'm like, should I correct him and just have him call me Parker, or should I just wear this new title with pride? It's a total open question for debate on that, because I kind of like being called Mr. Span.
Yeah, it's a bit of respect, but it also means you're quite old.
Yeah, that's what I'm coming to terms with here, Tim.
Okay, guys, it's bang on 8 o'clock. Are we waiting for more people, or shall I kick off?
We got Mike, me, you, Ty. I know Mike or Matt said he might be a little late. Will just joined, so I think you can kick her off.
Okay, cool. So I'm hosting this evening, and with the opening prayers. Welcome to the 18th TELx Council meeting. These recurring meetings provide several critical functions to our governance, provide transparency to our community, create structure for our forum, provide authors the ability to present their proposals to the council and community, allows the council and community to review, debate and refine these proposals so they can get to a place where we have consensus and mutual understanding, provide a medium for regular TELx ecosystem updates, ensure consistent communication between council members and the community, allows the community to directly engage in Q&A with council members. The TELx Council is a local governance organisation with authority over and duties towards TELx operational rules, system health and social wellbeing. Overview: accepts, develops and votes on TELx IPs to change or introduce new elements to TELx or alter TELx harvesting rules, and is responsible for generally representing the interests and informing their constituency in matters pertaining to TELx. Duties: the TELx Council is required to 1. Plan, finance and coordinate implementation of improvement to the TELx system. 2. Regulate the flow of TEL issuance throughout TELx to be harvested by liquidity miners. 3. Introduces, alters and enforces TELx operational rules, including harvesting, information and communication, maintenance and construction. 4. Informs miners of the activities and outcomes related to TELx and results from any snapshot votes. These snapshot votes are a requirement for all council members, and in order for a proposal to move forward, there needs to be a 5 of 6 majority vote, and all 6 members voting within 5 days from the start of it being posted to snapshot. So we are now moving to a recap of the last meeting, which should be Matt if he's there. If he's not, then was B's going to step in there.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just kind of moving downstairs. The wife was getting back from running some errands. So, yeah, not much to summarize from last meeting. Ha 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 ha. Obviously, we had Paul joining with Tim, and a whole bunch of stuff popped off last meeting. So, quick recap. Obviously, Paul came in. We talked a little bit about the banking, digital cash kind of strategy. We went into some details, obviously, with the Mexican USDC pool that's coming up, and why it kind of matters in terms of remittances and kind of getting things off the board. There was also mention, obviously, of the banking partner being fully onboarded as of that week as well. So lots to review. If everybody hasn't had a chance to watch that one, I would highly suggest to go and rewatch that one for sure. So we talked about market rollout plans as well. So, starting off with Mexico, USEU, Kenya, West Africa, and then looking at multi-chain stuff as well. And then obviously one of the big things I think that everybody took away from that one was, the announcement from Paul about 50 plus MNOs, potentially running on the Telcoin network by end of year. So that was a big one as well. We also had technical development updates from Khalil. So we successfully pulled data from UniSwap subgraphs for Polygon and Base. He was doing some demos, working on next steps. Essentially for Khalil, he's got to wait until Amir is updated and finalized with the audits with the hooks for UniSwap before he can really integrate anything into the website with the UX UI perspective, right? So we'll have to wait and kind of see if we have Amir on the line to get some updates on that. We did talk to, obviously, on those audits and go live. I think the plan was still to try to get something done, if not before the end of this current staking period, or to at least get things going for the start of the next one, which is going to be August the 5th. So we talked about that. We did talk a little bit about educational pieces and whatnot. So I did reach out to Parker, which is part of the reason I think he's on the call today, is just to talk about some stuff there and how we can, facilitate some stuff through the TAL to, continue to enhance the educational side of things and kind of get all of that going at the same time. Tim Mahota was on, obviously the lead legal counsel, just providing some context and how all of that should properly flow which we then obviously took and then pushed that forward, which was obviously working with the TAO. So yeah, outside of that, we had Ty bringing up the always in range proposal again. I think we'll touch on that a little bit later as we talk about kind of like the balancer kind of CLAM pools that Will posted in our group chat. So we'll continue our conversation there. And I think that was about it. Everything else, looking at the notes, there's kind of just like timelines and whatnot. So that was the quick recap. If we're looking at the agenda, so obviously we want to touch on a little bit of what's going on with UniSwap and TELx and the synergies with the new pools and everything like that. Any audit updates from Amir? We had also reached out to Grant and Leo just to get an understanding of these payments for the audits through Cantina. And who's going to facilitate that? When are we going to make that sale of TEL in order to convert it to USDC to make those payments? That the snapshot for the secondary audit, at least the costs, was passed. Everybody voted on it. It went forward as of the 18th. So basically last Friday, all good from that perspective. Yeah, and then again, updates on the launch pools, the balancer CLAM discussion, and then any open Q&A from anybody else. But that was essentially what we have on the agenda for today.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Andrew. So without further ado, the first item is Mr. Parker's ban to talk about hopefully UniSwap TELx synergy and anything else, Parker, but try and keep it within a couple of hours. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it. Yeah, so speaking with Andrew, he mentioned coming on to talk about a few different areas. And so I wanted to break them down. So basically, there's the education piece, which there's two areas to discuss on that, which includes updating the about section of TELx. This is pretty outdated into its new form, and working with the marketing agency to basically right now, the Storm Partners marketing agency that we recently signed with, approved, and are now, I'm working on this foundational doc for them, giving them all the possible information about Telcoin, in terms of the association and the platform and TELx, and how we want to basically bring both all of these DeFi protocols onto Telcoin network so that we can and basically how can we work with them to ensure that that's one of our target markets that we're going after, and how we do that both from the perspective of proposals on DAO forums and within their communities, as well as more actively with the agency in terms of targeting, creating the proper materials for them. And so, yeah, so basically, I think we need to probably, consider updating the about section just to something that's more up to date. I think it's been a few years, and yeah, the marketing stuff is just it's a ton of work, but it's going to go a really long way in terms of the output that's going to come from them. And TELx and the entire platform are all very much so included in what we're doing there. And so yeah, I think that from an education perspective, those are the two areas that will have the most impact and for the foreseeable future. From the other areas that I wanted to talk about, which is ecosystem development. So basically, there's two ways to look at ecosystem development from the perspective of TELx and the overall platform, and its performance and its usage and the number of users and liquidity and all those considerations. And so you can kind of look at it both from the inbound perspective or the inward perspective of we want to bring DeFi protocols onto Telcoin network, and how do we get from point A to point Z for each of those. And then also the sort of outward ones where we have existing proposals that the community has a really strong preference towards, especially concerning exchange listings. And so there's this big proliferation of these exchange based L2s that similar to Base and the strategy there, hopefully at least it makes a lot of sense based off of where those things are going, that getting but on those layer twos liquidity mining pools like Base, and the other ones like Krakens or Binance's, I think those are things that should be continually observed. I think Unichain is a good one as well. And so that we can get those users to get liquidity, intel, and therefore access to our ecosystem to participate in one of the four minor groups based off who they are. And so, yeah, there's the sort of which networks should be incentivized in order to drive the exchange listings initiative and bring more users uh, into the ecosystem from a sort of outbound perspective, and then how do we work closely with DeFi protocols to to get them to launch their protocols on top of Telcoin network. And so the first one with the exchange layer two is to me is pretty simple. It's just to figure out exactly which ones line up with the exchanges that we want to go after, and put pools there. And then the DeFi protocol aspect is more of a hands-on work with the agency as well as basically determine which DeFi protocols we want to bring on to Telcoin network, the liquidity mining incentives we want to do, and then approach each of the DAOs that is responsible for the governance of those protocols with a proposal to bring them on as a partner and incentivize their markets on TELx on Telcoin network. And so those are the two sort of areas for ecosystem development that I think we can on the DeFi protocol side. That's really a sort of I think it's just both part of the marketing agency thing, but also something that can be proposed via this council's TELx IP process to, basically create an initiative towards going, or at least determining which ones we want to approach and bring them online. Because there's only so much TEL incentives that you can allocate towards liquidity mining pools, and so we need to probably dial in on who are the exact ones. I think Uniswap comes to mind in a big way to me because it's the largest one that's been around the longest. They have Unichain, which is cross chain sort of L2 aggregator layer, and then a few others make sense too. And so yeah, and then the exchange L2s is pretty simple. It's just incentivizing pools and determining which ones, I think in collaboration with Adam and the platform council's initiative on this, are we closest with and are going to be the biggest upside. Because what we're seeing, like what you see with sort of like Coinbase, for instance, is that it looks like their move is towards bringing everything on chain through Base. And so at some point, I mean, of course, their centralized exchange system is going to stay in place, but I think at some point there's this sort of, as we've seen with the DeFi versus centralized exchange volume, the DeFi volume is just going nuts relative to that. We're going to see a huge emphasis on these exchange layer twos, and if there's a ton of liquidity there and people are trading, then you have on your network, then you have both incentive alignment with that ecosystem and can really sort of translate that into real business outcomes on the centralized exchange portion that people are, really have a strong preference towards. And so, yeah, I know that's pretty long, but overall, those are the sort of areas of research and that at different levels need to be deliberated by this council if it chooses, suppose, to go in that direction, and things that I'm sort of working on in general with this marketing agency that I think is going to be a huge multiplier for everything we're doing across all the councils and the broader association and ecosystem. So thanks everyone. Open for questions.
Thanks very much, Parker. Yeah. So we'll be getting an update at some point on how we're going to proceed with the educational pieces on the website? Are we going to get it from an email or you know, some sort of a group announcement here, or?
Well, I mean, I think we need to determine precisely what educational components you guys want to have on the site from, and how I can help with that, and also how the agency can help with that. I think generally, that's probably more of a TELx council decision. I'm certainly happy to facilitate and help with the educational pieces and get them done. But as far as like, that's I think, if you guys want me to help you with that, we should probably put together a proposal so I know exactly what I'm doing. But I think like the about section is just my guidance is that should be updated.
Okay, sure.
And that marketing wise, we should and will sort of incorporate education into about TELx into that and see what they can do.
Okay, just dialing it back on previous meetings where it came up. I think it was Tim Moser at the last one was saying that it should be actually someone from Telcoin rather than the council who starts putting that together. So maybe we could have a separate discussion about that. Any recollection on that, Andrew?
Yeah, no, and I'm happy to help with that, like getting it done. I'm just saying I need to know what I need to do.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
sure.
what Parker is getting at, Tim, is that like he wants us to define the scope, and then once we can define the scope of what we're looking for, Parker
Yeah.
can come in and work with the marketing agency. And on that note, Parker, on the education side, like I know reading through like the RFQ a little bit more with Storm, like part of the KPIs were to bring in more users to TELx and all that kind of stuff and increase liquidity. So I'm assuming anything that we kind of build with them is within the scope of that marketing budget, or are we talking about having a secondary budget with them on different things? Or I guess maybe that depends on kind of what we determine as the scope of what we're looking for. But like just off the top of my head, like I'm thinking more like kind of like short videos, how to's, kind of like how we had those one-on-one videos 3-4 years ago when they initially came out, like stuff like that, but like not 15 minutes, 1 to 2 minute kind of bursts where it's like, okay, this is how you bridge, this is how you connect to TELx, this is how you provide liquidity on Balancer, this is how you do it on Uniswap, this is how you then stake on TELx, like stuff like that. Like at least that's for me like more just kind of the scope of what I'm thinking. But I think the about section obviously needs to be updated too. There's some outdated stuff that's in there. And we'll probably have to get into a regular cadence. Maybe it's every 6 months or every 12 months that we have to review those docs and kind of update them as this industry moves pretty quickly with changing information. But that's just kind of off the top of my head what I've been thinking about in terms of the educational piece, which can kind of somewhat tie to, that TELx community website that we had kind of put together a couple of years ago. So that's kind of the general idea of what we're thinking.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. And I think if we're going to have a collaboration going forward to work this out, maybe we could set up a separate group, a separate meeting or something if we want to muck in. Parker, do you think we could do that maybe?
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. I think we should do a meeting with whoever in this group wants to lead that, including the marketing agency. And Andrew, I will share I can share it with everybody, but the inputs that I'm providing, it's basically, they have 8 different sections across this questionnaire. My goal is to just get everything in there that they could possibly use and to understand all the areas of the platform fully, and then work their magic with it. So I'll certainly share that with you before we input it into their machine, and make sure that it has the scope of what you want to go through in it on there, and the details are described. Well, it's sort of very difficult set of questions because it's just a lot, and I don't want to. It's difficult in the sense that it's very high stakes. I don't want to provide the foundational level knowledge into this thing in any way that doesn't get the full context and accuracy right. So, anyways.
Okay, we can follow up in a group chat outside of this then. Yeah.
I'd just like to jump in here, guys. Hi, Parker. Hi, everybody. Yeah, we're in a bit of a catch-22 situation at the moment, because we are having development changes happening that will change the look and feel of TELx. And until we really get familiar with that, it's difficult for us to define our requirements in terms of what needs to happen. But I agree. I think we need to do, as a group, as a TELx council, we define the scope, we list our requirements, and then we have that meeting. But before we can do that, we need to see how the new UniSwap links work, the new stuff to TELx. So at the moment, we're currently in this catch-22. We can't do that until the changes are live or close to live, and that needs to happen kind of first. So it's going to be a little while, I think, before we can, hopefully within the next month, get together and define our requirements. But that's
like to me, like on the Uniswap side, like that's a little bit more of an advanced kind of liquidity provider. Like I think what we want to do too is to bring, those new users in who are not as savvy. And like we can, position them to use maybe a little bit more of like the balancer side of things. Like, so to me, like the education side, like goes from like the beginner to intermediate to like expert level, where we're educating people on like what is DeFi and like what are liquidity pools, what is impermanent loss, and stuff like that. Like I think that stuff we could probably put together pretty quickly, but I totally agree with what you're saying on the Uniswap side, where it's a little bit more complex, but we can kind of build the framework where, okay, we have an educational section. Here's your beginners. Like if you have no knowledge of crypto, no knowledge of MetaMask or anything like that, here's where to start. If you have a little bit of knowledge, okay, let's go intermediate, and it could be, impermanent loss or, other stuff like that, market makers, and then move into kind of, the higher expert level where it's more of like the concentrated liquidity and stuff like that.
But don't we already have these links to those existing tutorials?
A little bit in like the about section, yeah, but I think it just needs to be, like updated, like Parker mentioned, and then just maybe a little bit better on the UX UI, where like a video is in there on the website as opposed to like a link kind of, taking you off the website. Like ideally for me, like once somebody goes to the telx.network website, like they have everything that they need there to facilitate everything that they want to do in order to start providing liquidity and learning about it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a work in progress in parallel with what we're doing. So, as we say, I think we should have a separate meeting to actually, hunker down on this. If we can arrange that afterwards, Andrew, do you think? Okay, cool. Said yeah, sure. You've gone. All right. Okay. Unless there's any other questions. Going once, twice. We'll move on to some updates from Amir if he's here, or
I'd actually just like to make another comment, Tim, before we do move on.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how long Parker will be on the call for, so it's really just picking up with something he said, and I totally agree with everything. The point I'd make is, it takes so much time for us to get something done. I mean, we've been trying to get these Uniswap pools live now for what, about four months, I would think.
Since January, so it's been about 6 months.
Six months, yeah. And that's just getting one pool live on Uniswap on base, So while I agree with Parker about, trying to deal with all these other components, it's quite a complicated structure now with Storm involved, dealing with other DAOs, such as the base DAO. DAOs fundamentally take a long time to make a decision because of the nature of what they've got. And I'm just wondering if some thought can be given about how we can speed up the process of expanding TELx, because by the time we come to implement and go live with the changes that we've done, we're kind of already way behind the current developments, like with this CLAM stuff and all the other exciting stuff that's happening. The technology, the concepts are evolving a lot quicker than we can react. And so therefore that poses a problem for us, does it not?
Yeah, I would think a little bit, but keep in mind, once like the audit is done on Uniswap for V4, like creating a new pool is going to be pretty seamless. Like it's just the challenge now is just the onset of getting everything ready to go with Uniswap. Once the hooks and everything is ready to go, like getting a new pool up and running should take, you know, the amount of time it takes us to get the snapshot vote up, create it, get it on the TELx website with Khalil. Like to me, that's 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, the velocity of, because there were some major infrastructure changes, improvements that needed to be made across the board on TELx to facilitate not just Uniswap, but the front end, you know, upgrade for security protocols that's been done, the multi-chain aspect, Uniswap aspect, and then those things, like they have been in the past, you know, they become, like Andrew said, like pretty much plug and play. You're plugging in addresses and they're duplicating existing front ends that facilitate your ability to interact with the pools and earn rewards and everything. So all that work over time, I think, just now going to set it up so you can roll these pools out pretty quickly. And I do, on the second part of it about the decision-making processes being slower with DAOs, I fully agree. And so we need to be selective about who we want to bring on the Telcoin network, and really go after those targets. And so we spend our time as efficiently as possible. Because when lots of people have to make a decision versus just like, you know, a company, right, where just one person can make any decision at any time if they're the CEO, then, you know, it just takes more time. So.
Thanks, Parker.
Parker, while you're here too, sorry, Tim, I just wanted to ask, like with Uniswap and potentially like Balancer and other dexes where we may want to, you know, go towards, like getting them to build on the Telcoin network, or at least integrate that into their DEX. Is that something that the TELx Council needs to facilitate?
Yeah.
That's something the TAO can help out with to kind of get things going.
So yeah, that's a great question. So the TELx Council should determine which on-chain exchanges it wants to work with and deploy onto Telcoin network. And then once it's been decided how much would be allocated towards each, and which ones, then you can do a TELx IP, approve it, and then we go after them, not physically, but you know, from a target market perspective. And so that's why I think that it comes when you guys make the decisions about what is done to, you know, using what resources, and then the TAO will facilitate either doing that directly or via agency, either, you know, Storm or otherwise implement it.
Okay, so the process, the way that would work is if we want, like, again, say Q4 TELx or the Telcoin network's up and running, and we want to start migrating some pools from Polygon to Telcoin network, and say one of the Uniswap pools is the first one, we would have to put a TELx IP first for that migration, approve of it, and then it would go to you guys to help facilitate that. That works up and running, and we want.
So you just need to determine which ones you want that's how to go after, and how much incentives you want to allocate towards those shared pools that you would launch on Telcoin network. and any other costs associated with having them deploy on Telcoin network. So you have to figure out which protocols and how much TEL you want to allocate to the pools on Telcoin network for those protocols, and then we can go and do their versions of improvement proposals. And
in your experience, do you have an idea of like what that timing is to kind of get, say, a Uniswap or a balancer to integrate a new layer one?
No, I think that it just varies so much across different ones, and so that's a research question to put into how do we determine which protocols to work with. Like, if it's going to take them no matter what a year, then obviously we don't want to waste any time on that, you know. So there needs to be some research that goes into that sort of target market. But I think starting with the biggest ones is probably the smartest strategy, the ones that have been the most likely to do multi-chain quickly and well.
Okay, yeah, no, I appreciate the insight. I was just curious as we talk about timelines and trying to prepare for things to come is all.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks, Parker. Was there anything else for Parker while he's here? If not, we'll move on. Did Amir make it to the meeting, or I think Andrew, you had an email from him, just a quick update, which was basically saying that he's going to give us an update.
Essentially, doesn't look like Amir is on. No, what he said was the audit is coming around slowly but surely. He's just had a lot of back and forth with the auditor on design changes. So we know that the secondary audit was completed. I know Amir was working on some of the secondary adjustments. So maybe we could try to get a little bit more definitive answer from Amir, and if we want, we can maybe just post it to X or Telegram and on Discord as well, just to provide everybody with updates and maybe have a little bit more an understanding as to what's going on for the next call. Next call will be August 6th, which, you know, that next staking period is August 5th. But I think we talked about this last time too. Again, regardless of, you know, whenever these pools are ready to go, we'll get them launched ASAP and just pro rata the rewards based off of, you know, how many days we are into the staking period. And then it'll just kind of work into the regular cadence with the rest of TELx. So whenever it happens, I would assume at some point in August, sooner the better. Unless somebody has any other updates, like Mike, I know you're obviously close with the team. So I don't know if you have anything from Amir on your end, but
I have no update from him other than what you had relayed. So
okay, yeah, and then
I'm a little surprised it's taken this long for the second audit. I thought we were anticipating it being done approximately a week and a half ago. So I may just check in with him and see if there's been any sticking points or what's going on there below the surface.
Okay. Yeah, no, sounds good. And yeah, if you can flip us an email and just provide us with an update, that'd be great. So we have an understanding of where things are at and kind of timing wise, but I know everybody's kind of excited to get these new Uniswap pools
Right.
up and running.
Yeah, sure. And as you say, we can get updates from, you know, by email and in the Discord chat and everything else in between meetings, so we don't have to wait for the next meeting to get another update. Okay. And so that brings us on to the next one, which is Grant and Leo.
Yeah, I don't see either of them on as well. And I don't think we got any response back in terms of the email from them. So I think for us, it's just more on timing and who's going to facilitate it. I know part of the conversation was giving us access to the budget and the safe. But that was causing some problems with having it multi-sig and the NFT. So I know that they were working towards that. Last time I remember talking to Grant about that wasn't a high priority with everything going on with Telcoin network. So they said that they would essentially facilitate that for now. For me, it's just more understanding kind of budgetary stuff. And okay, you know what? We know we have to, you know, spend essentially, you know, 40 grand on these two audits, but when are we doing it? How much TEL did we have to sell in order to facilitate that, so that we can update our budget and kind of, use that moving forward.
Okay, so that's a work in progress and an item that will stay on the agenda.
Yep, for
And
next week.
quick note on that. And I'm about to hop off and really appreciate everybody for having me. But so the TEL IP has gone to the Treasury Council for voting for the various financing aspects from last week. 'Cause basically the Platform Council has to first approve it, and then the Treasury Council does it interacts with the TEL Treasury, and so yeah, that should be done here shortly.
Great, thanks, Parker. Okay. I think he's gone. Well, thanks for coming, Parker. Yeah, he's off. Okay. Right. So yeah,
First
the
approve
next
it, and
one,
then the Treasury
snapshot,
Council does.
secondary audit. That vote has passed to get that one through. So that's done and dusted. There weren't any problems with that, were there? That was all quite good. I think a couple of people had initial trouble trying to actually get the vote through on the system, but I think we all overcame that. And that passed. And yeah, Paul launches and updates on the USDC and Mexican Peso pools. We're kind of plugging along with what's happening with UniSwap v4, but what about the EMXN?
Yeah, I don't think we really have any updates on those, Tim, just because essentially we're waiting for the audit to be done before we can launch everything.
Yeah.
And then once that get going, we'll get those open, get them incentivized, hopefully get some liquidity going, and then hopefully everything is going good with the Telcoin holding side of things, get the banking partner in Mexico up and running, and we can open up that corridor, through the TEL app and get that going. That's exciting.
Yeah, going in the right direction, and another work in progress coming to a conclusion soon, hopefully. Okay. Now the balancer CLAM post that was kindly shared. Any thoughts on that? Anyone who's had a chance to read it? I know this is something that's probably close to Ty's heart. So maybe Ty, you wants to say something on that?
Well, I think I think Will should take the credit for sparking off the discussion, because that was a great link. Until he posted that in our chat, I didn't know these balancer CLAMs existed, which was good to know. I had a quick read through, but maybe Will can.
Sure.
Who started the whole thing off? Maybe he wants to. We should give him the opportunity.
Yes, sorry, Will. This is your baby. On you go.
Yeah. Okay. Hi guys. So yeah, I came across this new CLAM polls on Balancer through Twitter, and I looked a bit into it, and it's basically what Ty wanted to do, keeping the balance in range and readjusting as the price moves in the liquidity pool. And I think it's a great thing, but what I'm thinking is that we are now expanding to UniSwap, and I think we should focus mainly on UniSwap. And I think if this system goes well on Balancer, in no time UniSwap will develop something similar. So I think we just can play around with the CLAM pools on Balancer ourselves to see how it's going, and maybe in the near future there will be such an option on UniSwap, and we can decide to go with it for the TELx pools.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, is anyone or you in the position to actually test it out to see how it actually works on Balancer?
Yeah, I guess we can just provide liquidity to whatever pool, trade ourselves, maybe with some ETH and another asset, and make our own experience and discuss from that point.
I was just going to say, if we want to just take a step back and maybe just explain kind of what the CLAM pools are. Like I know I had a pretty extensive conversation with ChatGPT kind of about this, and I shared the link in the chat. But just for those that aren't familiar, CLAM, CLAMM, basically stands for Concentrated Liquidity Automated Market Makers. So it's very similar in the sense where Uniswap has that same kind of concentrated liquidity aspect to it. The main difference between the two, when you're looking at it though, is the balancer CLAM pools are essentially everybody in the same pool, in the same range, and it has that ability to automatically adjust the range based off of the targets that we had set and the ranges. So there's different metrics that we can apply to the pool at the beginning of it. And essentially from there, anybody that wants to provide liquidity, everybody has the same range. And if for whatever reason it goes outside of that range, it slowly kind of moves up and down that scale. So that essentially 100% of the liquidity is within that concentrated liquidity range. So to me, like that's a big thing where, again, our aspect and our goal at TELx is to provide deep liquidity. And these kind of pools have that ability where it's almost like a plug and play where, you know, you put in your liquidity. Again, it's not on an individual basis where that is Uniswap versus this is kind of more of a communal pool specific thing. But we have 100% of the liquidity that is concentrated within that framework that we're looking at. So to me, like that's a good advantage considering what we're trying to do with TELx is to provide that deep liquidity. On the other side, obviously with Uniswap, you have you know, that individual range ability to adjust in terms of your metrics and whatnot, and you have a little bit more control. But with that token and that more control means, you know, outside of implementing Ty's AIR, always in range idea, you essentially have to withdraw liquidity, input the liquidity again, adjust the range as things are happening. So it's an interesting kind of concept from my perspective. And I don't think it's a bad idea that we kind of look at this, that we can almost do this in tandem. Like I know we're obviously working towards Uniswap v4 right now, and to me, like that's okay for the focus. But like I just don't want to lose sight of this because I get a lot of comments for TELx where people aren't as educated, maybe let's say, about it, or don't want to put in as much time to kind of manage that liquidity. So it kind of balances those who are a little bit more in tune and checking it more often versus those who are maybe less in tune and just kind of want to, you know, put some money in, and you can have that ability. So I think there is a way that, you know, down the road, I don't know how far down the road, but there is a way down the road that I think that we can kind of use both of these kind of concepts in tandem for the different type of TELx liquidity providers out there. So I don't know if anybody has comments on that. I'll continue to look through my notes to see if there's anything else I kind of wanted to bring up. But like for me, like it's an interesting concept from that perspective. Just thinking from, you know, different perspectives of different liquidity providers.
Yes, exactly.
It is an interesting battle between benefiting the pool with the provision of deep liquidity, as Andrew was saying, and benefiting the user or the provider, because with Uniswap, because you as a position taker can specify the range, there's an opportunity there for you to get a lot of the fees and a lot of the rewards because you're in range maybe when some of the others aren't. So there is a tug of war going on between the two concepts. And I had a short conversation with one of our providers, Thinking Beer, who messaged me. He's actually in Uniswap V3 or V4 pools, and we were saying, you know, we're getting great returns on those. So the range, the concentrated liquidity concept is great, but the benefit to the user will vary between the different balancer aspect and Uniswap aspect. So it will be good, as Will mentioned, to see if Uniswap takes this on board and sees if it produces some other kind of version of the always in range type idea that I had. But I'm almost redundant now, though. That proposal's more or less getting adopted by the actual.
You front ran it, Ty.
So we've maybe lost our advantage in that regard.
You should have patented it, Ty. Should have gone for the copyright.
There you go. But like Ty, yeah, based on what you're saying, I think like you're looking at it from a proof of work almost perspective, where Uniswap users are going to be more active on top of it, which if that is the case, then generally they should be reaping more of the rewards. Again, from an individual perspective, totally agree with you. But again, as the council members, and part of our duties is to generate, the most amount of liquidity in the deepest sense. And to me, like looking at it from that perspective, just from a liquidity perspective, like it almost, from what I'm reading and what I'm kind of playing around with and the questions I'm asking with ChatGPT, is it sounds like that those balancer ones are a little bit better, just because you have 100% of that liquidity that kind of moves and shifts on that kind of that range and that motion, and we have 100% of that liquidity within that concentration. Right. And again, the gap might be a little bit bigger, but I think we can determine what those metrics are. And we can play around with, how, when does, the CLAM pool start kind of adjusting, that liquidity? Is it, plus or minus 10%, plus or minus 20%? Like we can do a little bit more due diligence to understand the risk appetite to that. But essentially, like in my head, like you basically have anybody that is in there claiming the pro rata amount of rewards based on liquidity they put in versus kind of the always in range kind of concentrated liquidity. So again, there's two, I think, sides of it. I think we just got to, keep in line and in sight with what the holistic view of what TELx is versus putting too much emphasis on what the individual thing is. And I think there is probably a balance that we can kind of strike between the two things.
Yeah, I think so too, Andrew. And if anyone does actually start using it, it would be interesting to get some feedback. So, testing it and seeing is usually the best way forward. It's kind of a DYOR, but if we can all try and get some feedback from whoever's actually testing it out, I think that'd be good. Okay, so is anything else on that topic? Okay, all right. So we're kind of going on to any other business now. I can't actually see a list of any questions that might be raised in the chat here. I saw some things pop up, but are there any questions from the audience in the no questions so far? Okay, all right, thank you. That's probably why I haven't seen them. Right, okay. So are there any other business, any walk-ons that anyone wants to bring up before we head to the end of the session?
Yeah, just a quick question, probably for Derek here. The AI or whatever you're using, Derek, is actually generating the notes. So the concept of note taking by council members, that's kind of been replaced by AI already, hasn't it?
Yeah. So just to give a little context there, I mean, again, it's taking the transcript of what's said and analyzing it and aggregating it together. But that, it's like with anything, it still needs to be double checked. So yeah, there's no real need to do, I suppose, traditional note taking. Just simply, I will post the summary as it comes out, and then there'll be, I'm sure, some small tweaks here and there, maybe something that wasn't picked up or needs to be clarified, and we'll post that internally, right? So that it can be vetted and make sure it's correct, and then it can be put out on the channel in Discord.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you posting it to the channel in Discord? Because before this meeting started, I was trying to scan back to see where the notes were from last week's meeting. And I know you mentioned, I think, that you would post them, but I don't know if they appeared in the TELx channel. Not a criticism, I just couldn't find them.
No, I know Andrew had asked me to, and I'd posted them for your guys' review, and I think everything's fine now. So again, those are in the thread that I made, and it's on a Google Doc. So I will repost that link again, and if I think they're good to go, I can post them. So
yeah, cool, thanks. And also, we're coming to the end of our kind of published schedule for who's hosting and who's doing the recap and things. So we should kind of just extend that. I can do that, or Andrew can do it. Whoever's wanting to just publish the next few couple of months, next few meetings over the next couple of months.
Yeah, that's just a case of changing the dates, isn't it? And just rolling that rotor over. So if you fancy doing that, that'd be great. Oh, Andrew said he'll do that. No worries. Okay. So Andrew said he's going to do that.
He's got the original sheet.
Yeah.
It's just a little spreadsheet. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool,
Andrew's
guys.
doing that. Okay. Okay. Just a note on the AI note taking. We will be getting a bullet point version as well as the transcript, so that it's just easy to turn those bullet points into the next agenda for the next meeting. Can it do that itself, or does someone have to go in?
Yep. No, it normally comes through as I put it. It's in a bullet point format first and foremost. Cool. So rather than a transcript's too long to read through, so it's a summary of the transcript put into a bullet point form. So again, I will. It usually takes about 3 or 4 hours to make sure go through everything, and then I will tag you guys again. But there's a thread that has meeting notes for approval. It gets posted there, and then once you guys have a chance to look at it, then you can take it and post it in your channel whenever it's ready.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Okay. All right. Getting close to the end of the allotted hour. So any other questions that anyone might have, not just on what we've been talking about, but anything new that's not going to take too long to discuss? Okay, there's one thing I might like to leave with you just as a thought. We've probably got some elections coming up for the councils. That's going to be in a couple or a few months. I'm not sure when. I can't remember when that actually was. Was it October time? Just to have a think about that, as to who might want to stand again or for new. But really something we should be thinking about going forward. But that's just a tip in from me. Anybody else with anything? Okay, going once, going twice. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you next time. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys. Bye for now.